My F23, BF, M23, just broke up with me because of one of his guy friends lied about hooking up with me before. How do I fix this relationship? She posted on November 14, 2024. My boyfriend and I have been dating for about 10 weeks now. When he officially asked me to be his girlfriend, we both agreed that we wanted to take things slow. It felt important to make sure we were building a relationship that was intentional and thoughtful. Neither of us wanted to rush into something too quickly or jeopardize the good connection we were forming by moving faster than we were ready for. Now that we're almost at the 3-month mark, we decided it was finally time to start meeting each other's closest friends. This felt like a big step for both of us. I knew it was significant because it meant he was ready to let me into the parts of his life that mattered the most to him, and I felt the same. I knew he had mentioned me to his guy friends before, but it was always in a very general way, just letting them know he was seeing someone without going into too much detail. That made sense to me because we were still figuring things out in the early weeks of dating. But now that we had reached this point, it felt like the right time to open up our worlds a bit more. On Monday, my boyfriend and I were hanging out together like we usually do. It was supposed to be a relaxed evening, just the two of us spending time together. But from the moment I arrived, I could tell something was off. He seemed distant in a way that I couldn't quite put my finger on. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining it, but little things kept happening that confirmed my instincts. For example, when I snuggled up next to him on the couch, he didn't react the way he normally would. Usually he'd wrap his arms around me, hold me close, or at least acknowledge me in some way. This time though, he just sat there, stiff and unresponsive. I tried not to overthink it and told myself he might just be having a bad day. Everyone has days like that where they're not in the mood to talk or interact much, so I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. To lighten the mood, I decided to initiate sex. I thought it might help him relax and feel more connected to me, and it's something we've done in the past to improve the vibe when things feel off. He didn't resist and we ended up being intimate, but even afterward I could sense that he was still distant. The connection I was hoping for just wasn't there, and I felt like he was miles away emotionally, even though he was right next to me. Afterward, I asked him if he was hungry and suggested we order some food, which is something we usually enjoy doing together. I thought it might bring a sense of normalcy back to the evening. But instead of responding with his usual enthusiasm or playfulness, he just shrugged and said, "I don't know. I don't really care." His tone was flat and detached, and it left me feeling even more confused. At that point, I couldn't keep my feelings bottled up anymore. I felt hurt and frustrated by the way he was acting, and I needed some sort of explanation. I snapped a little and told him that if he didn't want me there, he should just say so instead of treating me like I didn't matter. I wasn't yelling, but my tone made it clear that I was upset and that I wanted an answer. He stayed silent for about 20 seconds, which felt like an eternity. Then, out of nowhere, he asked me if I knew one of his friends who I'll call Alex. The question completely blindsided me because it felt so random and disconnected from anything we were talking about. I told him I only knew Alex from the times he had mentioned him in passing, like when he was talking about his group of friends. I explained that I had never met Alex in person before I started dating my boyfriend and that I was absolutely certain of this. He stared at me for a moment, almost like he was trying to read my mind or figure out if I was lying. Then he said, "Fine," in a cold tone, stood up and started putting on his shoes and jacket. His sudden movements made me panic and I asked him what was wrong and where he was going. He didn't give me a clear answer. Instead, he said, "I would have been fine with you hooking up with one of my friends before we started dating, but the lying is something I'm not putting up with. I'll go for a walk and I want you to be gone when I'm back." Then he slammed the door and left. I was completely stunned. For a moment, I thought it might be some kind of cruel prank or test, but as the minutes passed, I realized he was serious. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Why would he think I was lying? Where was this accusation coming from? None of it made any sense and I felt completely blindsided. I called my best friend and told her what had happened, barely able to get the words out. I was so shocked that I couldn't even cry at first. I just kept replaying the events in my head, trying to figure out how things had escalated so quickly. My best friend told me it was probably best to give him time and space to process whatever he was feeling and suggested I pack up my things and leave before he came back. Reluctantly, I followed her advice. As I gathered my belongings, I couldn't stop thinking about what he had said. The idea that he believed I had lied to him cut me deeply because I would never do that to him, especially knowing how much trust means to him. I left his place feeling heartbroken and confused, unsure of how to move forward or if I even could. Later that night, I sent him a text explaining my side of the story. I told him I had no idea what he was talking about and that I wasn't lying. I said I was confused but wanted to give him the time and space he needed. I told him I loved him and didn't want to lose him over something like this. Then I turned off my phone because I knew I would drive myself crazy staring at it, waiting for a reply. Around 3 a.m. I turned my phone back on and saw a long text from him. In it he said he was deeply disappointed and hurt. He explained how the situation had unfolded on his end and said he wanted to talk the next day at his house. When I arrived at his place the next afternoon, he was already waiting for me. I wanted to hug him as soon as I saw him, but he stopped me and asked me not to touch him. That broke me. I started crying and couldn't even get a word out. He eventually tried to calm me down and started explaining what had happened. He told me that he had been hanging out with a group of his guy friends when he mentioned that we were officially together. One of his friends, Alex, reacted by saying that he and I had hooked up for a few months a couple of years ago. From there, things spiraled, with the other guys chiming in and accusing him of breaking bro code. Alex had shared details that seemed intimate and specific, like describing tattoos and scars that aren't visible unless I'm undressed. My boyfriend said he felt blindsided and betrayed because he didn't know how Alex could have known those things unless what he said was true. I was devastated, not only by what he was saying but by the fact that he didn't believe me. I told him I wasn't lying and that I had no idea why Alex would say those things, but my boyfriend said he didn't know if he could trust me anymore. Let's read some relevant comments. Is she's ex trying to find a way out of the relationship because of Alex? She answered, my best friend thinks he's lying to get a way out too. She thinks he's realizing things are getting serious with us talking about meeting each other's friends and wants some excuse to break up now, and his friends probably don't even know we're official yet. It just doesn't make any sense. He was the one to bring up meeting each other's friends. Also, I feel like even though I might sound naive, he wouldn't lie to me. At least I hope he wouldn't. I've come to Reddit because all my friends and family are telling me to just let him go because he's not worth it, but I honestly feel so heartbroken right now because it's something I had no control over. I've been making all kinds of suggestions to my BF, but he's ignoring me. I just can't believe it's so easy for him to cut me out of his life completely. She's ex should cut Alex out and find a new friend group. She answered, I can only hope for my ex that he end up doing this for himself. However, even though I still have love for him, there is no chance we're ever getting back together, and I think he's realized that too by now. She posted an update on January 9, 2025, almost 2 months later. Hey everyone. I've been reading all of the comments you left under my last post, and I want to thank you for taking the time to share your thoughts and advice. Even though some of the things you said were hard to read at the time, they really opened my eyes to the situation I was in. I realized I needed to do some serious reflecting and figure out not only what was happening in my relationship but also how I had allowed myself to get to that point. This update is a little overdue, but I wanted to make sure I gave you all the full story and shared what happened afterward. To start, I want to make one thing crystal clear. I did not sleep with my ex-boyfriend's friend. I know who I've been with, and I can say with absolute certainty that Alex is not one of them. There was never a moment of doubt in my mind about that, but the way things unfolded made me question everything, about my relationship, about Alex, and most of all, about my ex. In the days after my initial post, my ex completely went silent on me. At first, I was devastated, replaying every detail of what had happened and trying to make sense of it all. But as time passed, something shifted. I started to reflect, not just on the situation but on our entire relationship. Slowly, I began to realize there were only two possibilities. Either my ex was lying to me or Alex was lying to him. And no matter which one was true, it didn't change the fact that my ex had chosen to treat me as if I were guilty without giving me the benefit of the doubt. I decided to stop reaching out to him altogether. It hurt like hell, but I knew I needed to draw a line for my own self-respect. To my surprise, after 3 days of silence, he texted me asking if we could talk. At that point, I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I was angry. I responded with a long message explaining that I wasn't insane, I knew what I had done and hadn't done, and I wasn't going to let anyone make me doubt myself. I told him that either Alex was actively trying to destroy our relationship, or my ex had lied to me outright, and I was done being framed as the bad person in this situation. I also let him know that I had been reflecting and realized there was no going back for me. On top of that, I was starting to resent him for sleeping with me right before everything blew up. It felt manipulative and I couldn't ignore it anymore. I ended my message by saying I'd rather just wrap this breakup up quickly. He read the message almost immediately and I could see he was typing for what felt like forever, 20 minutes, maybe more. Finally, instead of replying, he called me. When I picked up, he was crying and asked if we could meet in person. He said I deserved to hear the truth before making any final decisions about breaking up. I agreed, but only on the condition that he brought all of my things with him because I was done playing games. He came to my parents' house, where I've been staying since everything happened, and when he arrived he was still crying. I honestly just wanted him to drop off my stuff and leave, but he begged me to let him come inside so he could explain himself. I hesitated but eventually let him in, and we sat down in my room to talk. What he told me was honestly one of the most shocking and infuriating conversations I've ever had. He started by saying that I was the woman of his dreams, that he'd messed up his life by ruining things with me, and that he couldn't believe how empty he felt without me. As he was saying this, I was already crying, but I asked him to stop with the emotional pleas and just tell me what had actually happened. Eventually, he broke down completely, sobbing to the point where I had to calm him down so he could speak. He confessed that Alex had told him he'd slept with me and said I wasn't wifey material, adding that my ex should break up with me. Alex even went so far as to tell my ex to ghost me because, according to him, I didn't deserve closure. My ex admitted that, at first, he didn't want to believe Alex, but he also wanted me to prove my innocence. That's when he came up with the plan to test me. He said he made up the part about Alex knowing specific details about my body, my tattoos and scars, to gauge my reaction. Hearing this was devastating. I couldn't believe he had lied to me and manipulated me in such a cruel way. He said my reaction during that conversation made him feel like I was lying, which is why he sided with Alex. But things didn't end there. My ex told his friends about breaking up with me, and when Alex found out, he started freaking out. Apparently, Alex was furious that my ex had told me what he said, claiming it wasn't true and that I had sworn to keep it a secret. When my ex confronted him, asking if he was lying, Alex doubled down, saying he wasn't lying but didn't want his personal business exposed. At that point, my ex started to question everything. He went to confront Alex in person, but Alex's roommates wouldn't let him in because he was so upset. Instead, my ex drove to another friend's house to try to make sense of what was happening. This friend had also been there when Alex made his initial claim, and during their conversation he finally admitted the truth. According to the friend, Alex had always been critical of my ex for dating me. For context, I'm black and my ex and his friends, except for one, are white. Alex had apparently been making racist comments and jokes about me since the beginning of our relationship. My ex said he had dismissed these comments as Alex being Alex, but now he realized that Alex was likely lying because he didn't approve of our relationship. Hearing this was absolutely infuriating. I asked my ex why he would continue hanging out with someone like Alex if he was so clearly racist. My ex apologized and claimed he hadn't seen the full extent of Alex's behavior until now, but I found that incredibly hard to believe. By the end of the conversation, I was emotionally drained. My ex begged me to consider giving him another chance, saying he'd do anything to make it right. He even brought up seeking help from God to mend our relationship. I told him there was nothing left to say and asked if he had brought my belongings. He said yes, so we went downstairs and I got my stuff from his car. Before he left, he asked if he could hug me. I told him I didn't know, so he hugged me anyway, apologized again and left. Since then, my ex has reached out to me multiple times, at least 10, until I finally blocked him everywhere. One of his friend's girlfriends even messaged me, saying she felt sorry for me and that Alex had deceived all of them. I told her to tell my ex that the best thing he could do for me now is to ensure that neither he nor anyone associated with him ever contacts me again. As strange as it sounds, learning the full truth made it easier for me to move on. I realized that the man I thought I loved was never who I believed him to be. He was willing to lie to me, manipulate me, and surround himself with people like Alex. In the weeks since, I've started focusing on myself. I've been reflecting on my attachment style and patterns in relationships. I've realized that I have a tendency to fall for people who carry a lot of emotional baggage, and I've always been scared to be completely single. That's something I'm working on now. I know some of you might have expected a dramatic twist where I admit to sleeping with Alex, but that's not the case. I just wanted to share my journey and thank you all again for your support. Let's read some relevant comments. Has she's ex always believed Alex at all with the tendencies? She answered, I think my ex genuinely dismissed Alex's tendencies and didn't question it. On top of that, one of the guys in their friend group is black and Muslim, in mentioning that because Alex has also made discriminatory jokes about Islam in the past, so I think they all knew he'd say problematic stuff like that but didn't consider him racist, or he'd say racist stuff and still hook up with women outside of his race but not get serious with them. Honestly, I don't understand what's going on in their heads. First comment was, absolutely did the right thing, 10 weeks is a small price to pay. She replied to first comment, true. I hated that hearing that in the beginning because I felt like Eve known him forever and I thought he's the one, but truth is I don't even consider people friends after 10 weeks of hanging out with them. Second comment was, here's the thing about our friends. It's not bullshit when he says that he did not really think his friend was actually racist and didn't really pay much attention to it. When someone is your friend, they're your friend because you trust them and you see good in them. You tend to have a blind spot when it comes to your best friends. So when your best friend tells you that they slept with your girlfriend, then you have a better chance of believing them because why would your friend make it up? It doesn't make sense to you in your mind. In my view of this, I think two people are being punished. I think the OP was punished for something that she did not do and was treated terribly by her boyfriend's friend. I also believe that her boyfriend is punished because he put his trust in his friend and that cost him his relationship. I understand that the OP is mad at him for not believing her, but I think she also needs to understand that it's not like he was choosing to believe a complete stranger. He was choosing to believe someone that has been his friend for a while and that up until this he had no reason to not put all of his trust into. I think that is something that should not exactly be glossed over. I think for both people in this relationship they are both people that deserve a lot of sympathy. It sucks to be betrayed by someone that you trust. She replied to second comment. Me breaking up with him wasn't a punishment but a decision I made for myself. Honestly, yes, I was disappointed and shocked after everything my ex told me, but I wasn't mad at him. There is just no way the relationship could have been continued after what has happened. 1. Because I had zero trust in him anymore, which leads to 2. I only know about Alex's racist tendencies through third parties. What if it's even worse than I've been told and Alex is a serious danger for me to be around? I also didn't want to put myself in the position to make my ex choose between me and Alex and potentially his whole friend group. I'm not the best to stand my ground or set boundaries, especially when it comes to romantic relationships, and I've taken many exes back in the past, but this is something you cannot come back from. Will she trust her ex ever again after he lied to her? She answered, I don't trust him because he lied to me, and feeling like you can trust someone or not is not a choice. If Alex isn't actually racist, that would just mean that my ex would be lying again because he's told me about several instances of Alex being racist. I get what you're saying, but none of it is changing how I feel and I can't control how I feel. Also, I don't like how you're saying me thinking Alex could be a potential danger is an exaggeration. Lying about hooking up with someone with the intention of breaking off a relationship is scary. It also implies that Alex didn't want me around my ex. At the end of the day, I'm not trying to find out what lengths Alex would go to, so I chose to leave. Thank you for listening the story to the end. If you enjoy our videos, so don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Have a good day, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it and hit the notification bell icon to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.